Hello, my name's Caitlin from Knots and Cross Stitches, and I'm here today to talk about the technique called parking. Now, parking is where you park the threads on your fabric to stitch at a later time. That's all it is. Why you don't do it is where a lot of people debate and where a lot of people just don't know or don't understand what you're doing. So I have 3 pieces at this moment that I use parking on. 2 of my big Heaven and Earth designs, and then 1 of my little pieces. So I actually use parking on little pieces that aren't big ones. Now I will put some photos of those pieces in for you to see what they look like. So let's start with the positives. Why? Why do you do parking? Well, 1, I find it makes my stitching go quicker. So for me, parking helps. It goes quicker, it goes smoother. I don't have to think about what colour I'm going to do next. I just choose the next colour on the spot, on the fabric. I fill up that square or that section, depending which way I'm working. One of my pieces I work in sections, the other one I work in squares. It's just the nature of how the piece works. So sometimes I work in sections. You just pick the next colour and you go. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do it. You just work that pattern on that square on the pattern. Second reason to do parking is it makes confetti areas really easy. You're not having to count a lot. So you work just 10 by 10 blocks or sections, and you just work the colour through that section. That 10 by 10 block, and then you just park it and you bring the next colours through. You're not having to count long sections, and you're less likely to make a mistake. Now, one of my small pieces that I do, called Beacon at Daybreak, a dimensions kit, I use it for that. It's a very high lot of confetti, and one colour will come from this section, and then just a tiny bit over here, but it's a blended colour, so I don't want to take it off the needle. So I use parking, and I'll park it over here until I can work this section up over here. And then I'll bring it across. Or I'll find there's just too big a gap, and every time I try and leap those gaps, I'm miscounting. And so parking was just the way to go. And once I started doing it on that piece, I actually started enjoying it again. So that's what I found. So parking helps you go quicker. It helps you know where you're going, so you're not getting confused. And I find for me, parking helps me just move through a piece and enjoy a piece. For me personally, that helps. So bad things about it. So you do end up with a lot of threads on the fabric. If you're not an organised person who can come up at the same point every time, you will struggle. If you can't keep organised from one project to the next, if you're someone who doesn't make sure they go the exact same direction every time they do a stitch, you will struggle. You will need to stay consistent across all projects. This is something that I can put down any one of my parking pieces, any of them, at any point, and I know exactly where I've brought that thread up. So I know that if I've put down, I've got a black and white piece, there are 15 colours, different shades of greys. And I know that that thread is come up the top right corner of that stitch. So whatever colour that is, it's going to be that top right. And I know that. And that's what you got to do. So if you're not someone who can stay that level of organised or that wants to do that, then you're going to struggle with parking. You've got to have a consistency across projects, and you've got to have a consistency in one project. But once you get that, it's a lot easier, and it flows between projects as well better. Now, so for me, the cons aren't very high. Some people just do enjoy doing one colour and pick up one colour and do that through a whole page, a whole section, or a whole piece, depending what size the piece is, and that's how you work. I've found in time that I don't enjoy gridding my pieces. I've got a whole pile of my beginner pieces that I did grid, and you'll see gridding on these, on a couple of these pieces that I've got, but I actually stopped gridding because I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't like having to pull the thread out that I've managed to catch with the thread, with my coloured thread, and it's not something I'm enjoying. So for me, I found that parking lets me do the confetti sections that I don't need gridding for. Now, I have other pieces that I work section by section or colour by colour, because that's the nature of the piece, and it's a lot easier. I also talked, another advantage I find with parking is that it stops lines appearing on your fabric, particularly for people that work in 10 by 10 blocks on a big piece. So if you're working in a 10 by 10 block and you finish the threads, every single thread off at that edge of that 10 by 10 block, you will start to find that a line appears because you created a ridge behind your fabric. Now, I've got a piece here that I started off the piece working in 10 by 10 blocks or in sections. So I started off this piece working in sections. And so you can kind of see, I don't know whether it's going to come up on the video, but there are some distinctive lines through this page here because I was working in sections. And then once I started parking through this, it's flowing much smoother. I'm not having to count every 2 seconds. And you can see, zoom right in. So I'm working my way through. Now this piece, I don't do a 10 by 10 block, I do a section of colour. Because I find that the sections of colour on this piece are roughly 2 blocks or so wide, but they go across the piece. So I'm not a diehard, you must go 10 by 10, you must go this block by that block by that block and then bring it down and across, and I don't do that. I work where it makes sense to put the colours. So in this piece, the way it's working, I found that there were blocks of colours going across. So I take that little block, put the colours into that block and bring that whole block of colours across. So I'll work down and across in 10 by 10 blocks. So 10 by 10 down, but bring those 6, 4, 10 colours from that section across. And that works better. So if we see this, you can see the colours coming across. So I'll do this whole section of colours across. So I won't restart every 10 by 10 block for that. And again, the black, the green of the leaf comes across. This section comes through. And you can see it when I lay these colours out, how they're laying. So you can start to see those colours and those sections coming through. I've got another piece here. This one. And this one, I'm working down. Because there's only 15 colours in this piece, and there's no distinctive lines, so I can't find a a line of a colour going across the pattern at the moment. I found that the best way to work this one for me is just to work the colours down the 10 by 10 block. Maybe as I get to a different piece of the pattern or a different part of the pattern, I might start working some sections across. But at the moment, I'm just working vertically down the 10 by 10, and that's working for me for this one. It's too heavy on confetti, but it's kind of what makes it awesome. Yeah, so I will be changing this camera angle soon, and we'll have a look at showing you. I'll actually try and show you me working on this afternoon tea piece. But I wanted just to talk about this. So many people talk about how they get lost in their stitching, how they find it takes a long time. Both this technique, parking, is both, for me personally, I have found it's what's helped me get through those problems. I think it's something that works for some and doesn't work for others. Give it a go. Choose a small piece. Give it a try. You may find yourself happily enjoying it. You may find that you can't do it. I didn't like stopping and starting threads all the time. I don't enjoy that part of stitching. I prefer to work with the thread colours and not be constantly stopping, constantly having to look at the pattern and go, where am I? What am I doing? I found before I started parking, I would spend ages just staring at the pattern going, which colour should I pick? Which one should I do? Since I started parking, on these bigger pieces, I just choose the next square. You just pick the next colour that's at the top of the top left and off you go. Once those colours are done and through the square, you then choose the next colour. And if you've got spots left in that square, because there's a new colour that's been introduced, then you go and find that new colour and you introduce it and you bring it through. And then it's done. You're not standing, staring, going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Where am I going? You just stitch. And sometimes that's what you just need. And sometimes it's the only way to get through these bigger projects. Now, I also, in conjunction with the parking, I use highlighting on my pattern. So I have photocopied all my patterns, and I will highlight my working copy as I work through it. My working copies end up quite destroyed by the end of it. You don't keep them. So yeah, I will highlight as I go, as I work through it. So I know what colours I have done. You can see which colours are missing. You can see which symbols are missing. I have done a couple other things like, so here's my thread box for my hay. I've put a symbol key on the top of the thread box. So all these things help me move quicker. So I'm not going and spending hours and feeling like I'm not achieving something. Instead, I can move forwards on the project and enjoy it. I'm going to stop this and change the camera angle, and I'm going to show you how parking works in practice. Okay? Okay, so we've moved down so you can see my piece. Hopefully this is good light. Now, so you can see what I mean coming up close to it, how the colours come through. So up the top here, you've got this band of the browns coming through. And for this piece at least, it made no sense to work, say, a 10 by 10 block here and bring that across. It made sense to work this section here and bring that whole section across. It just didn't make sense to the colours to do it any other way. Again, here, you've got this green leaf, and that leaf comes down across a couple of 10 by 10 blocks. because it comes diagonally across, and it made no sense to bring it religiously across. Instead, we followed this green colour through this whole section. This black, now I'm working this black section at the moment, but I won't do much with this. So this black section is this whole section here. So I'm just bringing it up and down as I come, and it'll end up stopping somewhere here eventually. So I'll have to add a bit more black to finish that section. And then down here. So you've got the purple coming through, you've got these colours, a couple of the darker colours coming through at the top. And then I have my pattern off to the left. So with lots of symbols going, because I highlight where I'm going, highlight where I've been, I do not highlight what colours I've parked and where I've parked them. I am not organised enough, and I keep losing highlighters. I cannot keep 3 separate colours. So some people will highlight, some people will highlight the colour they have parked and where they parked it. Some people won't. I'm one of the won't. The reason why I won't is because I am religious about coming up at the top right of every square. I don't have to mark which colour I've parked where, because I can tell you exactly. If I can see the pattern and I can see the thread, I can tell you which colour that thread is. And I will be accurate, because it had to have been that colour on that square, because it's the top right of that square. And that's something you've got to stay strong on. You've got to be religious. So for you, it may be the bottom left. For you, it may be the bottom right or the top left. Whichever spot works for you, keep it across all projects. And I know I keep saying this, but this is really important. The reason why it's really important is because it will mean that you will enjoy this process. You keep it the same across all projects. You do it every time, and you won't be standing there going, what colour is that? You will know what colour you're looking at. You will know what piece you're doing, because there is no other option. Now I'm just going to separate this one out. And you can see, so just separate out the colour I wanted. So I just picked the next colour on that top left. Okay, so this will follow along the top of that. You just pick it out and you start working. And there we go. One, and now sometimes you do have to shuffle things out of the way. Now that colour was a U on the pattern. So there's a couple of these colours ahead of it or above it. Now, I do sometimes get sometimes it can get a little bit as you're doing the first little bit of that colour. And I'm trying to work around the camera, which is not helping my ability to see this at the moment. So I just did that square right there. Now on my pattern, Go 2 to the right. And up. Yeah. Unfortunately, right now, I'm trying to work around the camera, which is not helping my ability to see everything. And I will usually have my pattern right up next to where I'm working. And the simple thing is, for each colour I'm working, I pay attention to where I want it to go next. So sometimes I'll railroad, sometimes I'll go one by one. What you need to do is pay attention to where you want that thread to end up. You've got a goal as to where you want to be. You have somewhere where you need to park that thread, somewhere where you're going with it. And you want to get there in the most efficient way possible. Now the next one, so, and it's parked up over there. So you can see here. So I just did this section. And then I parked it up where it needs to start next. And then I don't have to think. I'm just going to pull this next colour. So this is one to the right of where I was working before. Now it can usually be easier if I've brought this whole black down. So I've got this whole black worked out. So I had to think and look a little bit because I didn't have that section in. Now if you've got that whole black down, you're just working along that edge. And you're just bringing it down and through this section and working there. You use what you've got already to tell you where you are. And just work those colours through until you've got a whole section that is done. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to spend ages going, oh, what colour am I going to do? It's like, well, this one. Now on my pattern, this one's a love heart. And, couple of things to note is you just have to finish these threads so that they, when you put them on the needle, I tend to do a loop start on my heights, but you can't have it so that the needle is caught. You need to be able to pull the needle on and off. You don't want to be leaving a whole pile of needles on your fabric. So even if you did get one needle for every thread, so you could leave them there, you don't want them there because they end up rusty. Now, this one is one. Because the next one of this love heart on the pattern is somewhere over here. So I'm not going to count it. I'm not even going to try to count it. It's not worth counting. So it's just stopped. And so I'm going to finish off this thread and then just move on to the next. I'm not going to spend ages working it out. I'm just finish it off and move on to the next. I don't have to then start one. One other thing that I make sure I do when I'm doing this parking technique is I make sure I finish all the park threads first, and then I'll come back in and add the individual threads. So sometimes there'll be a couple. Sometimes what I'll find is that I've ended up finishing off a thread back here because I ran out of thread or it was too low. So then I'll do that and then I'll start it again here and bring it through. Sometimes it'll just be a single stitch. So this like single stitch here. So when I get to this other heart over here, I'm going to have to start that thread up. And from that point over here, there's actually a few other stitches off down here for that colour. So sometimes they're by themselves. Sometimes, but what I find is that any one section, you may be starting 4 colours instead of starting 30, 40 colours in that one 10 by 10 block. Some people find this easy, some people don't. But I wanted to give you an option so you can see how it works, what you're doing. Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really wanted to say. Yeah, so you got this one. I'll see. Like I've got. Sorry, let's get this around the right way. I'll have to find a photo of my other piece. So you got this one. So again, it just works the same. So I've got a couple of colours up here. So I would pick from one of these ones first. And I know what colours are. They're on the top right of the square, and they'll be the ones that aren't highlighted on the pattern. So my pattern will have some highlighting. Again, through here, I'll bring these colours through. So you can see I'm just doing different sections on this one. So I will bringing this bit through, and then I'm bringing these bits down as well. And just bring them through and down. It doesn't matter where I work on this. I know what I'm doing, I know where I am, and I know what colours they are. There is no other option. They are that top right square. Highlight the pattern. I've got to go back and highlight the pattern that I'm just working on, those couple of stitches I did. And as long as you make sure that you highlight the pattern, that you come up the same spot every single time. Doesn't matter which project, doesn't matter what you're doing. You will know what you're doing and you know where you are, and you can pick that project up 6 years down the track. And actually, I've done that with the afternoon tea. I haven't touched it for over a year just because of timing and stuff. I haven't touched it for over a year, and yet I can pick this project up and I know where I am. I know what I'm doing. I have the pattern. I've got my pattern here. I have my threads. I know what I'm doing. I don't have to question where I am, what I'm starting with, and I just start working on the next colour. There's no confusion, no wait. And that's what I like about this technique. Some people love it, some people hate it, and you are welcome to voice your opinion either way. We all have things we like, but just it's something that I do love doing, and I find that it really does help me. It may help you, and I want it to be an option for you to find out whether it does. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and it's something that I find that a lot of people are asking about. A lot of people want to know how they can make their stitching quicker, how they can deal with confetti, how they can make things go smoother. And I really hope that this video can give you an idea of a technique that can help that. As long as you follow a couple of simple rules, from project to project, it's not something that you're going to struggle with. And you may find that you fall in love with this technique and it makes everything go quicker, or you may find that it confuses the heck out of you and you can't use it. Either is allowed and either is good. But you need to know that it's there. That way you have an option. You can use it if you need to or you want to. And that's really what this video is about. Happy stitching, guys. I'm going to work out how to edit this video now.